coordinator of the Master in Urban Planning and Policy Design, in which I also teach. I will be telling it later on. I'm an architect by training, but I've always been working since my PhD on urban planning and urban policies, with a particular interest in governance issues, stakeholder involvement, and urban conflicts in complex urban transformations. I've been engaged with the management of this master's course even before I became the coordinator. I've been collaborating with the previous coordinator, and in particular was in charge of the international dimension. So I will be sharing some documents so that you can follow. Okay. Well, do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So the presentation will be will start with a very short introduction to the Italian education system, our school within Politecnico di Milano, and bachelor and master programs, and then we will discuss the general content, so the learning objectives of our master, the basic structure, and we will conclude with mobility programs, and then I will leave the floor to Elene. So for those who are not familiar with the Italian system of education, after 13 years of school, we have an organization of higher education after the Bologna model, as in all European EU countries. So 3 years bachelor, 180 credits, 2 years masters, like the one we will be discussing today, 120 credits, with the possibility after the bachelor or after the master of having more specializing or professionalizing masters, or to proceed, of course, to proceed to the professional world, or to proceed with a PhD program, which is 3 years in the Italian institutions. Our school, so we are within Politecnico di Milano, which is one of the leading European technical universities, university which has just 3 schools, architecture, design, and engineering. The School of Architecture, Urban Planning, and Construction Engineering was born in 2016 as the merge of previously existing schools. It's a large school, in which we have a small number of Bachelor of Sciences or Bachelors of Science. In red, you see the architectural training. So we have a Bachelor in Architectural Design and 3 master courses in Architectural Design. The light green one, it's us. So we have a Bachelor in Urbanistica. Our bachelors are taught in Italian. And we have the Master in Urban Planning and Policy Design. There's also a master that you see in light blue in Landscape. Then we have the training in architectural or building engineering, and in orange, which is organized in bachelor and master, and then there's a 5-year degree. How about our master? It's a multidisciplinary program, which is firmly rooted, on the one hand, on the tradition of urban planning in Italian schools and universities, which stems from the tradition of architecture. So differently from what happens in other schools at international level, in Italy, urban planning is normally not located in schools of social science, such as geography, economics, sociology, etc. But it's located in schools of architecture, which means that we have roots that, on the one hand, go back to the attention towards the morphological dimension and the urban design dimension. Then there's a tradition of planning and planning training, which looks specifically at the regulatory dimension, as in the understanding of urbanistica in Italian. In our case, the master is the merge of these traditions with an Anglo-Saxon tradition of policy design. So a very strong attention, not just on the output of planning processes. So in terms of city forms, city organization, transformations, spatial transformations, etc. But a very strong attention towards the design process themselves. So which are the processes, the decision-making processes, the governance processes that lead to urban transformations? Who are the actors involved? Which are their relationships, their competences, their knowledge, their power, and how they this is linked to the process of, let's say, production of urban transformation. This multidisciplinarity obviously brings us to have a very strong attention to the core topics, the core subjects, urban planning, urban design, urban policies, but also with a very strong attention towards the dimension of urban studies, sociology, economics, etc., and policy analysis. The idea is to develop a quite open educational path that is linked to the training of professionals basically able to deal with the complexity of contemporary urban challenges, because this is the main question. Which are the challenges that cities and territories pose to us at different scales and in different parts of the world? Our graduates work in a global job market. They work for, obviously, architecture and planning firms, large engineering companies and consultancies. They work for local governments. Some prefer to remain in a research career at universities or research institutes, as well as in the real estate world. Some still work for third sector organizations or NGOs. As I said, at global level. So we have graduates that work in Milan, that work in Italy, that work in Europe, that work globally. The students that are admitted to our master have a very diverse type of backgrounds, which makes the mix super interesting, but also quite challenging in class, from urban planning, from architecture, engineering, as well as from some political and social science, economics, geography, environmental science. I will spend a couple of words on that later on. We do not have specific concentrations, so you will have a number of fixed courses, compulsory courses and studios, and then you can add on a number of electives that may, let's say, compose different trajectories. One more linked to the training of an urban designer, so someone who works specifically on the themes and modes of spatial plans and spatial projects, with the idea of acquiring a critical control of themes and tools, which means that tools will be obviously the object of training, but with a wider critical perspective, and a profile more similar to a planner, obviously with a more plural characters, with a very strong attention to the policy dimension and to urban studies, so the type of inputs that we can derive from a number of different perspectives on the city. We have a strong international vocation. This master is international since 2005 and 2006, so it was one of the first fully international masters in Politecnico di Milano. It's fully taught in English, even if there's possibilities for people speaking Italian to have some electives in Italian, but basically it's fully taught in English. It caters for an international audience. Every year we have 40 Italian or EU students and 40 non-EU students. For Italian students, there's a possibility to get enrolled either in September or in February for international, if there's still places. But for international students, the enrollment is in September. We have had over the years, I would say, an extremely wide array of national origins. So we have students from Europe, as I said, from Asia. We have a very strong intake from many Asian countries, as well as North and South America, African countries. So we really have the Middle East, a very strong international vocation, which makes the master particularly interested to global urban challenges. The internationalization of our faculty is advancing, and in particular, we have every year a course I will be telling you in a minute in the second semester of the first year, Contemporary City Descriptions and Projects, which is for which every year there's a different visiting professor who is selected on the basis of an international call. This year we have a professor from the University of São Paulo in Brazil, and we had professors from Japan, from Germany, from Spain, from a wide array of different countries. So obviously these teachers contribute to different perspectives on urban issues. And we have, I will be explaining this, international exchange programs. They can be either short mobility programs in Europe through the Erasmus program or outside Europe. And we have also 3 double degree programs I will be describing in a minute. So the program is 120 credits. The ECTS is the European measure of a credit. So these ECTS are the same basis that will permit very easily European exchanges. These 120 CTS are organized across 4 semesters, 2 fall semesters and 2 spring semesters. You will start in, if you're interested in applying, you will start in September. And there will be the first semester between September and December, then a second semester between the end of February and beginning of June, and the same model repeats in the second year. It's composed of compulsory and elective courses, but what is important to underline is that in each semester, in each of the 3 first semesters, not in the last one, the main training experience is a studio course. So a hands-on experience which is valuable 12 credits. So it's an important part of your semester. In which you will be working in groups to tackle emerging urban challenges at different scales. The final, the conclusion of the master includes also a compulsory internship, 4 credits internship I will be describing, and a final dissertation. So let's have a look at how the first year is organized. We have a first semester in which you have 1 studio to choose between 2 possibilities. One is the urban planning and design studio. The second one is the spatial planning and infrastructure design studio that has obviously an accent on mobility and territories. And then you have 2, let's say, core courses on urbanism, which is a course on tools, looking in particular at urban design tools, and a course on planning theory and practice, which reconstructs the main theories about planning and brings them to the contemporary debate. As you see, in terms of credits, they are relevant courses. In the second semester, there's a policy analysis course on the main instruments and approaches of policy analysis. You have an introduction to strategic planning and urban policies with a particular attention at the EU level. You have this course, which is given every year to a visiting professor, Contemporary City Descriptions and Projects, the one taught this year by Professor Cucenobre from São Paulo University in Brazil. And then you have the choice again between 2 studios. So every time you have a studio, you have the possibility to choose between 2. One is a master plan studio, so a very typical scale and dimension of urban intervention. And the other one is an urban policies design studio that combines the attention to urban design with the attention of designing policies and taking into account the decision-making dimension. In the second year, In the first semester, you still have 2 studios to choose between, but in this case, the studios are thematic. So the idea is that in the second year, you might have more interest towards a thematic concentration. The first one is on one very core topic of urban planning and intervention, so housing and the scale of neighborhood. And the second one is on urban sustainability, so clearly a theme at the frontier of many urban challenges today, looking in particular to the energy dimension. Then you have a course in sociology, social change and policies, and a course in regional economics. On top of that, in that first semester of the second year, and more in general in the second year, you can add in elective courses, such as a course in conflict management, which discusses urban conflict, which I teach myself, and a course in transport economics. The last semester is a bit different. You do not have a studio because the idea is that this semester is somewhat lighter. You can choose other elective courses from these that are offered directly within our master, or a much longer list in the Masters of Architecture. And you have some time to start devoting to your final thesis and maybe also to your internship if you're not done it before. The internship can be done both in the first and in the second year, but some students prefer maybe to locate it in this second semester of the second year. There's, as I said, many other elective courses apart from the ones directly offered by us. This is the basic structure reorganized, but basically we are there. There's 3 aspects I wanted to discuss together with the main structure of the course. And these have to do with the internship, the role of the internship, with the final dissertation and the importance of the final dissertation in this particular master, and the international exchange dimension. So we foresee a compulsory internship that can be done. It's quite short in terms of hours, 100 hours. It can be done in Italy or abroad, wherever you prefer. It can be an external internship, which means that you will be working for, if it's intensive, can be around 1 month, but it can also be part-time along with your lectures in an architecture or a planning firm, a public local authority or a public institution, an international organization, an NGO, a research institute dealing with planning, and gaining direct experiences of the job market. So you can choose it wherever you like, for instance, in your own country, if you prefer, if you foresee going back there after the university, or in Italy or in another European country. It can also be done internally, so working with a professor within a research project at a department in Politecnico, for instance, the Department of Urban Studies and Planning. The possibility of working internally is obviously very interesting. It's linked to the fact that you may have known some professors you're interested in the research they're doing. Our internship do not foresee any type of training activity, so you will not be employed in teaching or didactics. The final dissertation is quite an important endeavor in our master. As you see, it's 12 credits, 10% of the overall credits. We think that the final dissertation is important because it's the moment in which you do your first autonomous research, your first autonomous endeavor, and you can choose a supervisor from any professor from our school, but normally it can be a professor from our master, someone with whom you have worked in a course or in a studio along the 2 years. And you can propose a topic you're interested to develop, so it will not be us who propose topics, but normally it's students who propose topics. And it can have the form of a theoretical dissertation, so largely a literature review. It can be a planning project at different scale, so a master plan, urban design, the reorganization of some public space, whatever, at different scales. Or it can be policy-oriented, so you might have case study analysis, comparison of different cases in different countries and context. So as you see, it's quite free in terms of type of organization. It can be done individually or in maximum in a group of 2. And in the Italian university organization, there's a final public defense in front of a commission that is formed by professors from the master. The last point, which is super important for us, is the international mobility. So this master is international, as we said, because we have an international audience. Every year, the international students normally exceed in number the Italian students, because it's international in terms of outlook and scope. So we are certainly dealing with urban challenges at global level, even if obviously most professors are rooted in particular context. So, you will be requested very frequently to work particularly for the studio on some identifiable local context. And it's international because we have plenty of opportunities for mobility. You can have a short mobility exchange. There's a EU-funded mobility scheme that is called Erasmus, that might be known to some of you. If you enter in this scheme, you can spend a semester in another university with whom our program has an agreement. We have agreements with universities in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in the Nordic countries, in the UK, in Spain, in Portugal, in the Eastern, Central and Eastern European countries. In this case, the exams that you will be doing in the other universities will be fully recognized into your curriculum here at Politecnico di Milano. So it's a fantastic opportunity to spend a period in another university. And then there's other exchanges, short mobility exchanges with universities at global level outside the Erasmus exchange. We have exchanges with Russia, with China, with many other countries. And then you have another possibility, which is a double degree program. While short mobility normally lasts 1 semester, in the case of a double degree, you become engaged in a much more demanding program that lasts normally 5 or 6 semesters overall, so it's longer than the normal master. But at the end of this, you obtain a double degree, so a degree from Politecnico di Milano and a degree from the other university, which in our cases, we have 3 international double degree programs, one with Tongji University in Shanghai, one with Hafen City University in Hamburg in Germany, and one with École Centrale de Nantes, which is an excellent school of engineering in Nantes in France. We have also from next year an internal double degree possibility, so a double degree between 2 degree courses within Politecnico di Milano, which is super interesting because it complements the type of urban planning knowledge you will gain in our master with the one on building and construction management of the built environment. So the idea is that this other master will complement competences in the real estate field, in the production of urban transformation process, and in economics and feasibility studies. As we said, both short mobility and double degree programs have fixed numbers. So there's a small number of places every year, and you have to apply, and there's a selection process. Both for short mobility and for double degree programs, the calls are out in the autumn, in the month of November. They are closed in January. And when people are selected, they will be selected to move out in the subsequent academic year. So if you apply, if you decide to enter into a master and you apply in November 2021, it will be to move for your mobility starting in 2022, in fall 2022. Here you have the ones. Obviously, double degree programs are super interesting, but they are particularly engaging. So in case someone is interested, it's a good idea to get in contact with the professors. So this is our website, www.uppd.polimi.it, and I think it would be a good idea to have a look. You have all the things that I said today, and there's the contact, there's the description of courses, who are the professors, etc., etc. And then, of course, you're able to find all the information on the AWIC school. So this is it for now, and I think we can come back. Okay. So while you're maybe thinking to ask questions, elaborating questions, etc., I would ask to Elene to add something to this presentation from her point of view. Elene, yes. Can you introduce yourself briefly and tell us something? Yeah.
Yes, I'm Elene from Tbilisi, Georgia. I have background of architecture. So then I was like in general interested to get like a quality education abroad. So I decided that Italy was the best place to do so. And I saw the program as you're saying right now. So I decided to go, and I will share like my perspective, how I was exploring myself and the course. That was like a really amazing journey that I had. So firstly, I would say that I didn't have such a strong theoretical knowledge. So first semester was crucial for me because it really made me think why I was there and what I was actually studying. So it was like a really turning point for me. And at the same time, I had a master plan studio, which was like a super interesting from the point that in the class we were a lot of international people. We had someone who had the background of economists, another who was from planning, another from architecture. So from the first point, I was like, it would be really hard to communicate and work on one project. But in the end, the result that we had, we were so happy at the point that somehow this collaboration was so valuable that I really learned how to deal and how to work with them, to work with the colleagues who were from different nationalities and from different backgrounds. So I think it's a challenge, but this is one of the biggest gift that you will get from that kind of studios. So in the first year, I had 2 studios, and both of them were like really inspiring, and you would find yourself actually where you want to work and how you're dealing with your colleagues. I want to highlight that the first year is a bit challenging because you don't know how to navigate through the website, and our Italian colleagues were extremely helpful to help us and guide through all these things, how to register on exams and just how to register your course and everything when you're doing all the study plan. So I would say that through this, most of the time with the people with whom you are doing your studio are the ones that you actually become like the closer, because you're spending most of the time with them in the library, like working together. So also I want to say that we have this amazing thing which is called Beep. So technically this is a platform where we upload our work and share all the files. So you will be able to see the work of your colleagues sometimes as well, like what professors are sharing. So that really helps you to navigate through all those things. For second year, actually, I did the double degree and I went to Shanghai because I was just interested to explore and use this opportunity that we had. I went there, and sadly there was this COVID period, but the first semester was really interesting and inspiring because I met a lot of colleagues from all over the world, technically. And then I had another semester in Italy. I was working on my thesis there as well. And when you come back and you have like your 5th semester, I had the opportunity to had a lot of elective courses. And I would say that, and I really appreciated the palette and diversity that I had from the elective courses. I took conflict management and resolution that I had no idea what kind of open door it was for me. So you really realize what kind of layers these professions actually have. I had urban ethnography, which was another miracle course that really helps you explore what you think. Also, I had transport and economics, and they are very different. And really, you have no idea from the beginning, and it was one of the most challenging course for me. And I had climate and hydrology. So then I did my internship at Asian Development Bank, and I realized how important was all these elective courses, because there was no planner actually. There were most of the time like economists and from like the social studies. So without these elective courses, I think it would be really hard to even talk to them. So in the end, I would say that somehow this entire period gives you not just the diversity of courses, but most of the time you're getting engaged with people who have lived in India, who have lived in China, and they are sharing their personal insights. And especially during contemporary city, I remember that all our colleagues were sharing their points of view and their projects. And it's not that the one project that you're working on, but you're learning a lot from your colleagues, not just the professors who are amazing. But I think for me personally, the best added value is the network that you have and the knowledge you gain from like everyone, and it helps you to shape your what kind of profession you actually want to have, what is your target, and what kind of person you are as well. Because for international students, it's a turning point. You are moving in another country and you find a lot of people just like you who are living abroad, and it's a wonderful phase. I would say. Thank you. If there is any question I can help you to answer, here I am.
Thank you very much, Elene, for this first-hand experience of what it means from a student's point of view to be engaged in this in this master. Yesterday, when we discussed with Italian students, one thing that was remarked by the student who participated, Filippo, was he sort of said it's like going abroad, remaining in Milan. So for students who had their school and university career in Italy, in Italian schools and universities, participating to that master is obviously a fantastic opportunity to getting in contact with very different understandings, also the urban phenomenon and the urban experience, which I think was really important. So I would be happy to see if there's any question or comment or need for clarification on the part of the participants. As I said, we are in a small group, so you can directly intervene raising your hand, or if you prefer, you can write the question in the chat. Anything about the content, the course, the organization. We had quite a number of questions yesterday. Okay, how can we get teaching or research assistant positions during the masters? In general, in Italy, you cannot teach or be a research assistant if you do not have completed a master's degree. So this is different from what happens in other countries. So you would be eligible for small jobs at the university, but they're sort of complementary jobs. And in order to become a research assistant or a teaching assistant, you need to have completed your master. Okay, fine. Others? What happens in our school, for instance, is that very frequently it's PhD candidates, because if you complete your master and you're interested in remaining in university, we have also, obviously, there's many very interesting PhD programs across the world, but we have a PhD program in urban planning, and in that case, we have quite many PhD candidates who qualify as teaching or research assistants. Others? Does Polymi help us find internship, or is it up to the student? In general, it's up to the student. Polymi has a web portal in which offers are published, even if in most cases they're in the engineering field. So it's largely by firms who look for engineering stagiaire. There's some also in our field, but my advice would be in general to look for an internship yourself, because this would certainly most precisely suit your interest and your passion. So it's, from this point of view, it's very open. Of course, the internship has to do with the needs to have to do with the content of your master, but apart from that, is very free, both in terms of the place in which you will be doing it and the type of organization. As you heard from Elene, we had quite some students doing internship in international organization, in the Asian Development Bank particularly, but also in some UN agency, for instance, but as well as, I mean, private practice wherever. So there's some possibilities mediated by Polymi, but in general, I would advise to look for things you're interested into. Other follow-up question: does Polymi help us with jobs after the degree? Again, we have a career service who's very much engaged. I would say that it's more effective again with the engineering students because they have very strong connections with firms. They are advancing, I would say they're developing their outreach also to our world, but I would say that you might find some help, but in general, I would say that it's more on your part. But then obviously there's also the professors with whom you have worked that can be very helpful in suggesting connections, in being references, in connecting you to people. So a more, I would say, individual, tailored way of looking for a job.
Yeah, I can also share the experience of my colleague. Our professor's assistant was working at ARUP, one of the nicest organization, and then she just got interviewed, and through that she started internship and then stayed to work part-time. So I think if you're active and you see that the guest lecturers and professors will also help you a lot to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It also depends on which type of outlook you have towards the idea of remaining in Italy, in Europe, or moving back home, or going to another part of the world, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions about the master itself is all super clear? The courses, the organization. Our evaluation unit at Polimi does every year an evaluation of the job position of people who got their degree in Politecnico. 1 year after the degree and 5 years after the degree. And I have to say that our master is widely satisfactory in type of jobs that are found, type of employment, the sector, etc., etc. So what is the best bachelor study program for students that are planning for study urban planning in the future? I would say that obviously we have a majority of people with a planning background, some coming from our own urban planning bachelor, but I wouldn't say that there's a best bachelor, because we also have a lot of people who have different backgrounds that join in. Maybe there's a bit of learning to do at the beginning. If you come from the architectural side, as Elena was saying, you need a bit of theoretical, let's say, consolidation in terms of concept, etc. If you come from a social science background, you need a bit of becoming more familiar with technical tools. But we really have a diverse class, and I would say that all have the possibility to succeed significantly. So I would say that there's not a best, there's a recurring background, and certainly planning and architecture are the most recurring backgrounds. But then, as I said, we really have a diversity of profiles that have worked very well. How big is a single classroom? We have an intake of 80 students per year. So in principle, the courses, the compulsory courses have a classroom of around 80, 90 people. The studios split the class in two, so you will be around 40, 45 people. Then there might be some Erasmus students adding in. Elective courses largely depends, because since they're elective, you can have 15 people, 20 people, 30 people, depending on the course. In general, compared to other planning programs in Europe, our planning program is larger. So we have a significant intake, and therefore the classes might be larger. Normally, in studios, as Elena said, you will be working in groups, so groups of 3, 4, 5 people. It depends on the organization. And in classes, it might be that you have also some group work, and then you're working individually. In studios, there's a significant component of work which is being done in the class itself. And then there's quite a bit of homework in preparing and drafting and reviewing your project through the analysis and the project throughout the semester. Do we also take some classes with urban designer students too? We do not have a program in urban design at Politecnico. We have a program in architecture and urban design, which is a master in architecture in any way, with a specific attention to urban design. And we do urban design within this very course. So you will have some labs and some courses which are on urban design, and some labs and some courses who are more on policy design. But we do not have an urban design master. So in general, as I said, you will have the possibility to take some elective courses from the masters in architecture. We have a master in architecture and urban design, as I said, and then we have a master in architecture, environment, and interior design. They are basically masters in architecture, so there might be some smaller differences, but basically they are masters in architecture, so in architectural design. And you have many possibilities of joining classes with those. In particular, our own elective courses in conflict, in urban ethnography, and many others are taken also by architectural students.
I can add that during my workshop, I had a lot of urban designers and even for people whose focus is interior. So it's another kind of experience because workshops are quite diverse and you're choosing the one that interests you. So this one was specifically about urban design skills. So I took it, and I think if you want to, you can choose that as well.
Yeah, before going to answer the next question, I would just like to add on to what very usefully Elena introduced. Among the elective courses, you can have curricular courses that go along the semester, so that last the whole for 13 or 14 weeks of the semester. But there's also possibility to choose some intensive workshops instead. So they can be design workshops, summer schools, winter schools, and you can substitute some of the credits with these. Some of these are offered directly by our school, like the MIAO, the Milan International Architectural Workshop, and others, or they can be also taken in other schools prior to the approval of our school. And these are super interesting experiences because normally they're intensive, hands-on design workshops in which you have to work on a common endeavor with people with different backgrounds. Yes, we do have all the classes in one campus. Politecnico di Milano has 2 campuses in Milan, and then it has other campuses in Piacenza, in Mantua, in Lecco, and in Cremona. But urban planning is taught in the Milan campus, in the Leonardo campus, which is the historical seat of Politecnico di Milano in the northeast of the city. And then we have the Bovisa campus where there's other masters. So all our lectures will be there. And the Leonardo campus is the historical campus of Politecnico, and it's very well connected to the rest of the city and the urban region. Others? Just to add an information which I just partially offered, as I said, our semesters are organized from the first semester. The fall semester starts around mid-September. It depends on the years, 15, 20 September, and lasts till Christmas holidays, so basically the end of December. In some cases with some lectures also at the beginning of January. Then we have an exam session that lasts from mid-January to the end of February, and in which every exam, for every course, you will have 2 possible dates for the exam. Then in the last week of February, the second semester starts, and it lasts till the beginning of June. It's concluding in these days. You have another exam session that lasts from mid-June till the end of July. And then there will be another exam session between the end of August and mid-September. And for each course, differently from what happens in many international schools, in the Italian regulation, for each course that you take, you have 6 different possibilities to take the exam. So you have 2 dates in February, 2 dates in June, July, and 2 dates in September. Will we get the chance to design master plan in the course? Yes, some of the studios are devoted to that. In particular, there's a studio in the second semester of the first year, which is entirely devoted to master planning. What about the learning mode, online or in presence? So in general, our learning mode is always in presence because we, as a planning school, believe that the hands-on activity, particularly the studios, need really direct exchange and presence. In the last year and a half, we moved to online from the fully online mode last year in the spring of 2020 when there were the total lockdown in Italy, to a mixed mode in both semesters, the first and the second semester this year, in which when it was possible, like now, we have a blended modality, so half time in class and half time online. And when we had the government restrictions, of course, we resorted to completely online. In principle and in perspective, we as Politecnico di Milano, we want to go back in presence. So university is presence, is direct exchange, is working together hands-on. So this is certainly something to be taken into account. If you're interested to this master, the idea is that it will be in Milan. It might be, depending obviously on the evolution of the pandemic, that in the first semester next year, so in the fall semester, there might still be some lectures online, but as I said, it will be mixed. So there will be some lectures in presence and some online, which will in any case require the presence in Milan. So the online experience, which I think was difficult for all, but I mean, technically managed quite well in our university, is strictly linked to the pandemic.
I can just add one point that when we had this master plan studios, we were doing field trips. For example, we went to Modena and Bologna, so you obviously need to be there, and it's one of the most important part of the studio. And I think we needed to have that for urban ethnography as well, but due to COVID, we could not. So that was a bit sad.
Yeah, usually most of our courses foresee direct site visits, either in Milan or in the Milan urban region or in other cities. And sometimes there's field trips also to other, for instance, European cities, which we've been doing along the years. So we really have a very strong idea that this master is a hands-on experience. So in our conflict course as well, every year we work on a different neighborhood in Milan. This year it was not possible because of the COVID restrictions, but normally I myself organize field trips, visits, site visits, discussion with local actors involving the students. So in principle, the presence is very, very relevant. Then of course, if restrictions from the government come for health reasons, this is something we have to adapt to, but in principle, it's presence. Does urban planning in Polymi allow February intake? Not for international students. It does allow February intake if there's still places, because many years we do not have places, so we fill up our places in September, but if some places only for students with Italian title. Great. So I think that we discussed quite many things. And if there's no other question, I thank you all for reaching out to us. I obviously thank very much Elene for being with us. And you will find all the materials in the Polimi website. But I also write here my email account in case you have further questions or you need further clarifications, both before choosing to enroll and, of course, if you choose to enroll when you will be here, as a coordinator of the master. I'm always available for any question, request, need for help. And in case, of course, I can address you to someone else if it's not me following the issue. And I'm always happy to have the opportunity to discuss about content, choices, etc., etc. So thank you very much. And I hope to welcome all of you very soon in Politecnico. Thank you, Elena. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.